All right, everybody, welcome to Madden and Benz Unfiltered here on the Trib Live Facebook live stream and Trib Sports at YouTube, brought to you by Mike's Beer Bar on the North Shore. Try one of their 500 available craft beers, grab some food, including the fabulous steak and a stone, and watch Pittsburgh sports all year long on one of their many big screen TVs directly across from PNC Park at the end of the Clemente Bridge. Mike's also the proud sponsor of the new Friday football live stream with myself and Mike DeCourcy, 9 a.m. on Fridays, and the pregame podcast in advance of every black and gold football game. Meet me at Mike's. And Mark, there was no lead up to any Steeler game this weekend. They had a bye, but they still had a great weekend as the rest of the division lost. And even like the Bills, the top of the conference lost. How are you, if at all, changing your eye level as to what might happen for the Steelers here in 2025-26?
Well, I don't know if I've changed my perception of the team. I still don't think it's a very good team. But what if the other teams are all worse? And they are all worse in the AFC North. And Buffalo's, I think, a great team. I can't believe they lost last night at New England, although that kind of upgrades the Steelers having beaten the Patriots earlier, doesn't it? But I think the Steelers' focus should be on getting that top seed in the AFC. And I think it's reachable. Not probable, but reachable. Don't forget, they play Buffalo on November 30th. And it could all come crashing down then. But I bet the top seed in the AFC is in play when that game occurs.
Well, if you like somebody besides the Ravens in the North, now is the time to put your money down, whether it's the Steelers or someone else. Because if you look at the odds, Mark, I mean, the Ravens, frankly, are still the favorites in the North, if you can believe that, according to most gambling outlets.
After that loss last night?
Yeah, they're still at
yesterday, rather, that's unbelievable.
They're at plus 100, and the Steelers are at plus 110 or plus 115. If you look at Bet Rivers or DraftKings, a couple other places are right in that realm as well.
I only go by Bet Parks, Tim.
Oh, I didn't see Bet Parks, but it's all kind of in that space.
How dare you?
It's all kind of in that space. But, like, I guess the other way to look at it, Mark, is how would you feel about putting your money down on the Steelers to win the division? It's not even so much about betting against the Ravens. It is, how do you feel about betting on the Steelers? That's the big question.
It would take an epic collapse, choke job, run of injuries, maybe all of the above, for them to not win the division now. Seriously.
Because we kind of thought that last year when they were 10-3, and then that exactly happened.
Now that you mention it. Yeah, but you know, I think Aaron Rodgers prevents that. I think he could get hurt, though.
Yeah, I think it was a 2-game lead at the time when they were 10-3 over the Ravens. I mean, the difference with the Ravens right now, with Lamar being hurt, that changes the calculus on everything. Because now they don't have the –
blunt. Having watched the Ravens game for about a half yesterday and the Bengals game for about a quarter yesterday, because that's all those games were worth watching, it looks to me like Cincinnati and Baltimore have given up.
Yeah, they look like they're in the tank because of how much is invested in their quarterbacks.
Cincinnati especially. They've been outscored by some horrific margin, like by 70 points or whatnot, since Burrow got hurt.
I'd still be leery of this game coming up against the Browns, Mark, if it was the Steelers going to Cleveland. But Cleveland coming back from Europe, the Steelers coming off a bye, playing at home, I feel pretty secure in thinking they're going to win. Now, normally that's where things go awry for the Steelers. Like, you get surprised when they get off to 3-4 starts or win 3 of 4, win 5 of 6, or whatever the case was when they 6 of 7, I guess it was, when Russ became the starter last year. And things are feeling great, and then all of a sudden the wheels come off. We've seen this act before. Do we see it in these 2 games against the Ohio teams, do you think? Or are those 2 teams just so bad that the Steelers can take advantage at this point in the North?
This is weird. I see the game at home against Cleveland is tougher than the game at Cincinnati. The Browns aren't in the tank. They have a bunch of young guys. I think 5 rookies started yesterday. They kept Minnesota tight in London before ultimately losing at the end. I think Cleveland's going to be a tough game. I like the way Stefanski coaches. Stefanski's a much better coach than Tomlin. I don't care how bad the Browns are. I'm going to cite that Stefanski has 2 Coach of the Year awards. I'm going to cite, too, that Tomlin has a Super Bowl ring. But I think in terms of actual hands-on game strategy, lineup selection, plotting the course for his players, Stefanski is 10 times the coach Tomlin is.
You know what? Oddly, that kind of makes sense. I guess I hadn't thought of it, parsing it between the 2 games specifically. But, yeah, maybe going to Cincinnati on a Thursday night is somehow easier than the Browns, because the Browns, just from an emotional component, still feel like they're playing for something, whereas the Bengals and the Ravens feel like they're throwing their hands up in the air and going, not this year. Our QB's hurt again.
The Browns have so many young guys playing, they don't yet know they suck. The Ravens and Bengals, they know what up, and they know they suck. The Browns could easily won that game against Minnesota. Myles Garrett can, blow up a game anytime. I think it's going to be a tight game. I do think the Steelers win, but I think the Browns are going to be a better team than the Steelers in a couple of years. Unless, well, no, they won't be. You know why? They gave up too much draft capital in that ridiculous Deshaun Watson deal. Could you imagine the Browns with Baker Mayfield, the way he's playing right now, MVP level? The Browns would be great. The Browns would be better than the Steelers, although I think in time Dylan Gabriel might be okay. And who knows, next year, maybe the Browns will have finished low enough to draft anybody but Arch Manning.
All right, so listen, fans are out there watching, people are watching. I want your response to this. They got the two Ohio teams here, 2 games in 10 days. They got the Thursday night game coming up after the home game against Cleveland. Do the Steelers sweep? Do they get swept? Do they split? If they split, in which direction? I'm going to say they win both because the other teams are in such disarray. But, this is classic Tomlin territory, Mark. I mean, I think going back to after they beat the Jets, we looked at their schedule and said they probably should be better than 3-2, but they probably won't be better than that. So which game do they lose?
If they lose, it'll be to Cleveland. Cleveland right now is the second best team in the division in terms of execution.
I hated how they handled the stretch run against the Vikings yesterday. I did not like how they decided to manage the clock and kind of give the Vikings free timeouts and space and time to breathe and route to a touchdown instead of having to operate themselves to make that decision between touchdown and field goal. I think they burned themselves.
Buffalo kind of did the same thing.
You're right.
Against New England last night. So, sometimes, Tim, the right strategy don't work. I hate to bury it when, like I said, these are 2 better coaches than Tomlin could ever dream of being.
Also want to hear from folks about the Steelers and just if you think that they're good enough to be mentioned among the AFC elite.
Well, no, I'll answer that. No, they're certainly not. But sometimes things happen by accident. Sometimes you're the last team standing. Sometimes everybody else sucks worse. Now, the one that won't drop by the wayside is Buffalo. How about the LA Chargers? What happened to them? They certainly flashed back into their pan. The Steelers, if they win these next 2 games, will be in the running for AFC North, AFC top seed when they play Buffalo on November 30th. So it has been said, so it will come to pass.
All right, so Steelers fans want to hear from you. Also want to hear from Penguins fans since we get the season going on Tuesday. Mark, I feel very conflicted going into this Penguins season. I want to approach it like, hey, how good can they be? How bad are they going to be? Number 5 pick overall. Could they be in the top 5? Could they actually be on the fringes of the playoffs? I don't know quite how to feel, but my emotions are very different from my logic. My logic tells me that they're bad enough to be on the fringe of the top 5, so be there. Be that. That's what I'm thinking. My stomach is kind of telling me something different because I just don't want to watch 82 games and hope that they lose big picture. That's just not in my interest as a fan.
No, that's right, and that's the dilemma. Like, nobody enjoyed 1983-84 when they tanked from you. Nobody even showed up. That was the lowest attendance in Penguins history. That, I think the average was 6,900, something like that. Whoa. Should have been 6,600. But they the most important thing they can accomplish this year is to get a top 5 pick in that draft because there are at least 5 star caliber talents at forward, and that's what they lack. They got the star goalie in Morishov. They got the star defenseman in Brudick. They need the star forward. Kindle ain't that. He's pretty good, but he ain't that.
I look at what the goals are for this year, and the biggest goal is to see youth improvement. And now, in order to see youth improvement, you got to live with mistakes. Hopefully, Dan Muse is more of that than Mike Sullivan is. And if for no other reason, Mark, I feel reinforced in that regard that the right move was made coaching-wise because that has to be the priority, not doing whatever you can to maybe scramble in and win a tiebreaker or something like that to get in as the 8th seed or something along those lines.
Well, Tim, the right move was made because if Sullivan had still been coaching, they would be playing exactly the same way as always. And the ironic part's going to be in New York, he's going to be in the same position here, only slightly more realistic to scratch into the 8th seed and lose in the first round because they ain't no good.
Here's kind of a way to look at it. Here's an indication. I think we talked about this briefly on the podcast yesterday. You like Harrison Brunick. I like Harrison Brunick. We both want to see him in the NHL. This is a year where you can live with young defensemen making young defensemen mistakes because it's happening in the vacuum of a season whose goal might be to get a high pick anyway. So deal with it now. The issue is, as you've pointed out before, on the right side of the defense, how do you get a minute? Well, it looks like they're going to compensate with that by having Dumba go over to the left side, correct?
Right.
So
correct. That's what it looks like.
That's something that never would have happened with Sullivan. He would have had the right-handed guy on the right
Sullivan
side.
would not have wanted to keep or play Brunick.
Right, exactly. That's
Period.
my point.
He would have said, we've got 3 veterans. We're trying to get in the playoffs here. We're going to go with Carlson, Letang, and Dumba. For certain, that's what would have happened.
And it's the same thing that you'll see at times, I think, when it comes to logic of how playing time is allocated up front with the forwards, too. This notion of who do you put next to Sid, who do you put next to Malkin. You had an interesting thought about the podcast that might take a little bit more time. We can go in depth here on it about maybe Malkin getting Raquel in the short term while Rust is out, just to maybe keep him interested and have the kids play with Sid, which I find intriguing.
Well, I didn't say that. I don't care if Malkin's interested at all. I wish he was so disinterested that he'd go home. But
or go to Florida now.
Yeah. I mean, whatever you could get. I am more curious to see how Sid would do and how Sid would respond and how the kids would respond if Sid played on the line with Koivunen and Kindle to start. But that won't happen. It's going to be Raquel, Sid, and Koivunen, and that's okay too. The key is to have Koivunen with Sid because Koivunen's an up-and-coming Gunsel. He really is.
Yeah, that's the kind of winger that Sid plays great with, a guy who can make plays but also has the finishing skill for when he is set up by Crosby. Now, Gensel had that. I don't know if Koivunen has that kind of finish that
not
Gensel
yet.
did.
Not yet.
You think it's in there, though?
I don't know, but not yet.
Yeah. You're wearing a Canadian shirt, Mark. Are they going to win the East?
I'm wearing a Canadian shirt because I wore it last night. I haven't taken a shower yet.
Well, okay. I'm not saying that you're wearing it to suggest that they're going to win the East, but can
they?
That's
my mistress team. I like the Canadians. Now my buddy John Mooney Jr. is there. He won't be, there this year anytime soon. He's at University of Minnesota. But yeah, I think they have a real up-and-coming team. As I said on the podcast, I love Demidov. I love Slavkovsky. And I think they'll put something together. They got Dobson from New York on defense. I think they'll put a better team together. I think they will make the playoffs for sure.
How's Sully going to do in New York?
I don't think that's a very good team. I think he took the job for money.
Yeah. And maybe the lack of push and pull for what the goals are, because the goals in New York are just to win, obviously, because of how they bankrolled him.
Well, but then Sully's the right coach for that because that's his only priority, even if it's not realistic.
Right. Well, exactly. And if it hadn't come to a head yet with Dubas, it was going too soon. And I do think that played into the decision back in April, whenever they made the call.
I think the East sucks. I think Washington's going to take a big backslide. I think Carolina has the most overrated coach in history. Montreal could be up and coming. I keep waiting for New Jersey. Keep waiting. All we talk about Hughes brothers. Win something, you twerps. I think the East is awful.
I think
Florida
the East
lost 2 of their key players, one for the season, one till deep into the new year. I don't trust Toronto. I think the East is up for grabs. It's just that the Penguins won't grab it or come close.
The issue in the East right now is there's a great excuse to not believe in every single team. Like, Carolina seems to be fashionable just because Florida is injured. But the problem with Carolina is they just never get it done in the playoffs.
Here's all I need to know about Carolina and their coach, Rod DeBod, who's buddies with all the guys on TNT. So, Rod DeBod, what a great coach, Rod DeBod. He's a terrible coach. He coaches peewee level systems, man up on defense, dump every puck you can on net. Here's all you need to know. Mikko Rantanen got there, who's the best power forward in hockey, right? He got there, from what I'm told, played 2 games, said, look, I'm not ever re-signing here. Let your conscience be your guide. And they traded him to Dallas.
Mark, have
you
tried
hated it that much, that quick?
Have you tried to do a Google search on the name James Franklin? And if so, have you come up with anything that doesn't include the words buyout attached to it when you hit return?
I don't think they're going to fire him anytime soon. Do you? This year, not during the season.
I don't think they're going to fire him during the season, but like the point being, he's not allowed to have a loss like he had against UCLA.
He's not allowed to have it. We talked about that in the podcast. If you never beat Ohio State, Michigan, you're not allowed to lose to UCLA. Like, if you beat Ohio State, Michigan once in a while, and I guess he does kind of, but you know what I mean? That loss to a team like UCLA, who might be the worst Power 4 team in the country, that's just verboten. And I've always been a guy who said, he's going to get to the playoffs just about every year. You have to live with his shortcomings against good teams. But now you don't.
Yeah, I mean, I saw somewhere on Facebook or Twitter, I can't remember where I saw the thread. It was words to the effect of James Franklin's just good to rebuild a team. He's the guy before the guy. And I don't really know that's the case. Like,
no,
it's not
that's not true. And that was certainly not the intent upon hiring him.
Yeah, and, I don't necessarily know that the guy that comes in after Franklin makes Penn State all that much better and they beat Michigan, Ohio State, and Oregon on a regular basis. And it's not like Vanderbilt has gone on to the playoff a bunch of times since he left and he just laid the foundation and somebody got them over the hump. That's not really accurate. It's sort of a different argument and a different complaint than what some people are trying to manufacture.
Yeah, but they don't need to manufacture a fake reason now. They got a real reason.
Well, speaking of manufacturing,
by
Mark.
the way, we didn't talk on the podcast. How much blame do you place on Aller?
I blame him for just not being good enough to take them to the next level. I mean,
he was real bad in the first half. I bet he's a better pro quarterback than a college quarterback, and I don't know why I'm saying that, but I believe it. I thought that play call with their season on the line, the read option was just horrific.
Yeah.
At the end, But I placed most of the blame on Franklin and that defense, too, which was awful. It was just an awful effort from top to bottom.
Yeah, against an offense that had 48 hours to adjust to the offensive coordinator being fired. So, that's just insanity because they had the coach fired the week before, and then they went through the rest of the staff and started firing guys in midweek. That team was in a shambles. They just lost to New Mexico at home, for crying out loud. That was a bad Power 4 team that they lost to. And then he got Pitt beating Boston College with the quarterback switch, and Pat Narduzzi comically saying that I didn't mean to tell you guys, to mislead you guys about the quarterback. I didn't mean to do that. No, of course you didn't, Pat. You just said why you did it, to tamp down any conversation about a change. Who are we kidding here?
Well, first off, Tim, wherever Joe Paterno's at, they're making him watch that game against UCLA over and over and over. Yeah, Pitt, okay, now we get to overreact to the new quarterback the way we overreacted to Holstein, the way Pitt NIL people overreacted to Holstein, gave him $1 million. That win over a bad team with a new quarterback is nothing to crow about unless you have nothing else to crow about.
Can you hear me right now, by the way, Mark? Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
fine.
all right. My headphones went out, so if you can hear me, then good enough. But no, when I look at Pitt and what happened with them this weekend and how they approached it, they went to a quarterback who was clearly better, and I don't know why it took the amount of time for them to figure out that that was the case.
Oh, I do, because they were paying Holstein $1 million. That's why. Now I can't hear you. Now you're not moving.
No,
now
okay.
things have gone awry. Now I can hear you.
You got me okay now?
I can now, yes.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that again. I apologize.
Well, no, the reason they waited to turn away from Holstein and go with this kid is because they were paying Holstein $1 million.
Yeah, and that just looks like, it's hilarious to me that there was a time where we're fretting, the Pitt fan base was, about is he going to leave? And now it's like, how did they ever give him this much? And why did they misevaluate him to that degree? That says something about the coaching and the eye level of what they think a good ACC Power 4 quarterback is.
I think part of it is, too, and it's going to happen to this kid as well. They got film on Holstein. People figured out what was wrong with him, and, he wasn't as good anymore. I think the same could happen to this kid, although, I don't know, maybe they need to start a new quarterback every week, one that the other team doesn't have film on.
No, that's a really valid point, and one that Narduzzi, in his own apology for not misleading people, admitted why he was misleading people, because he didn't want people to know what was coming with the quarterback change, and that was just Boston College, who's now 1-4. Now we're talking about Florida State this week.
Right. They really needed to put one over on Boston College to beat them. They really needed them to not know, who the new quarterback was or have any film on him. They really need to do that beat a really bad team. But that's Narduzzi being Narduzzi, trying to, posit himself as a genius. Yeah, if you're that good, coach, go down to Florida State and win that game. They ain't, unbeatable. They're ranked 25. They lost pretty bad to Miami. But now this is a tougher game. Let's see if he crows after this one.
All right, let's get some comments here. And we're all over the place with people responding. This guy just jumped right in on this conversation. It's kind of the same reason they stuck with Slovis, afraid of losing the transfer portal. That's actually not a bad point. It is sort of life revisiting itself here.
Yeah, and Holstein will be in the transfer portal, and he'll leave with $1 million of Pitt money.
Brian says James Franklin is the perfect coach for the Penn State fan base. Phony, baloney, positivity, a CEO type. Yeah, he's a blowhard, but so is Narduzzi. They just do it in a different way.
Oh, my God. If you rated the blowhards on a scale of 1 to 10, Franklin's an 8, Narduzzi's a 50. Okay? At least Franklin was in the Final Four last year.
Well, at least there's merit to there's accomplishment to what Franklin has done as opposed to Narduzzi. And
Narduzzi won a fluky COVID ACC with the quarterback in his 9th season.
Richard says Kindle likely gets a 9-game audition before he's sent back to juniors to continue his development. Brunick may be good enough now to stay the entire season. I don't think there's any maybe about it. It's just what do they decide to do with him?
Well, the thing with Brunick is that he won't get better playing major junior, which is where he has to go because of that antiquated rule that protects major junior at the expense of player development by NHL teams. If you're 18 or 19, get drafted, you got to go back if you don't stay in the NHL. You can't play in the AHL. So I think you keep him. If the first 9 games go well, they would have to be disasters for me to not. Kindle is here until like Rust and McGroarty and Hayes get healthy. But I think that's good. I think you reward him for clearly having earned it.
Mark says watching the Buffalo-New England game last time left me really wishing Mike Vrabel was coaching the Steelers. Patriots are well coached, show up to play, and have excellent game plans on both sides of the ball. He's building and developing his talent, all things the Steelers are sorely missing. I don't know.
They beat Buffalo on a bad night for Buffalo. I still think Vrabel's a raw meathead. That said, I would rather have him coaching than Tomlin.
I mean, but, it's not like he coached circles around Tomlin in that game earlier this season between the two. I know it was turnovers primarily that aided the Steelers to a win. But again, I thought there were some coaching elements that lacked from Vrabel there. I thought there were coaching elements that lacked from Vrabel when he was in Tennessee. Let's be honest. They've got a potential future very good quarterback there. That's the determining factor. It's not the coach.
Exactly.
It's they got a good young quarterback.
Like I said, I'm not a Vrabel fan, but I think he's a better coach than Tomlin. By the way, Tim, I got to talk about one fallout with the Penguins going younger. For me personally, I feel old in that room, but that's good. I mean, I'm allowed to be energized too, right? But Sid sits right between Kindle and Koivunen, where he should sit, to kind of, osmosis wisdom to those guys, right? But they don't know to get up to let me sit down.
So who's going to teach him that? You think Sid's going to teach him that?
It's probably just not going to happen.
Jason says, for some reason, I wouldn't be surprised if the Pens finish with the 4th or 5th worst record and 2 teams above them in the standings get picked in the draft lottery, resulting in the Pens dropping out of a top 5 pick.
Right, because the Penguins have never had any luck with lotteries.
Right, because, no history whatsoever in that regard. No, it's not a matter of being picked. Like if you want to talk about conspiracy theories for how Sid got here, so be it. But I don't think
no conspiracy theory. Nobody in the NHL wanted Sid to come here. You think they wanted Sid to come to a podunk market by comparison to New York or Toronto or Montreal?
Well, I don't think the league wanted to lose Pittsburgh as a market, but I don't think they rigged the lottery as people want to believe. Philadelphia wants to believe that.
The only lottery I ever think was rigged, besides Nick Perry, 666, was the frozen envelope one with Patrick Ewing to the Knicks. I do believe that.
Have they done a 30 for 30 on that? Because they should. That's a good 30 for 30, isn't it?
I'm not sure you can get people to talk.
Well, Stern's no longer with us, so, he would be the ultimate one that was implicated, right? And it's not like they won a championship out of it.
Tim, it's been 41 years since we drafted Lemieux. EJ still won't confess.
Let me see here. Mark says on the Penguins, one last nostalgic feel-good token playoff appearance, then the curtain comes down mercifully.
No, F that. that, F that, F that.
The curtain's down.
There's 5 superstar talent forwards in this draft. You can't push that off till next year. They won't be there then.
Did you watch McKenna at all this weekend?
Yeah, I watched the second Penn State game. He proved that he did the right thing going to college and ditching junior A, kind of calling back to what I said about Brunick, because he's very good. He's almost dominant. He makes big plays, but he doesn't rip it apart like he would junior and did junior at 16. He's playing against older guys who make him work for it, and that'll make him better.
John says, despite the worst offense in Major League Baseball, Bucko Bricks, Clemente Wall ads, and ushers hitting fans with belts. That was a highlight, by the way. Ben and Travis were kept. To both of you, what's Paul Skeens thinking as he watches the playoffs? He's thinking about the countdown clock to his next contract, to arbitration, to his extension after a trade. That's what he's thinking.
I think Paul Skeens really does take things as they come. I commend him not only for his incredible pitching talent, but for his demeanor.
You have to have a pretty steady head to not go crazy under these circumstances. But then again, he knows what lies ahead. And Mark, he's pitching in a vacuum where if he doesn't pitch well, nobody notices. If he does pitch well, everybody notices. And they're taking care of his arm for his next deal.
Yeah, he's pitching in a vacuum, in an offensive vacuum. I don't know. You see, he was among the top 5 in innings pitched this year. So as far as taking care of his arm, I'm not so sure I'd say that. There was that time right before the All-Star game when they really went protective with, 14 innings total and 3 starts. But he did pitch a fair amount of innings, Tim.
Mark, I know you got to go right at 10 o'clock, so why don't you let people know what's coming up on the show this week? We got the Penguins starting on Tuesday. I'm sure you'll have lots of Penguins coverage in advance of that, correct?
I think we have a Penguins guest today. I think we have a Penguins guest Wednesday. I'm honestly not sure who, because they haven't told us. We're pretty sure it's Sid on Wednesday, but we'll see. I will be doing my semi-regular Hard Times promo, takeoff on the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, to preview the Penguin season. So, yeah, there's a lot to look forward to if that's the sort of thing you look forward to.
All right, we will be back next Monday after the Steelers play against the Browns. They're back in action, so be watching here.
Tim, I got to interrupt. I got to say, if you got the division sitting in your lap, baby, and if it's all there to play for, and you lose to Cleveland, the Browns, lose to Cleveland at home, baby, that's hard times.
Madden and Benz Unfiltered back next week, brought to you by Mike's Beer Bar. Go to Mike's before Browns and Steelers and meet me at Mike's.